morning. It's 8 minutes after 10 on a Friday morning. That means it's time for the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. And we've got a good show today. I'll be with you for the next roughly hour, 47 minutes. It'll be fun. Or 47 minutes rather than an hour. It wouldn't be an hour and 47 minutes. 47 minutes. It'll be fun. I got all kinds of real estate stuff to talk to you guys about today. I think you'll like it. We got a little bit of an update. Well, actually, a lot of an update today's show. It should be good. Good news, which is nice. You know, sometimes we fight these battles and we win these battles. We don't always tell you about it, but this is one we're winning, and I want to make sure you guys know, because it is the sort of thing that if you need help with, you can call us to get help with, or you can certainly do on your own. Although your odds are not as good on your own. But anyway, so today we're going to get into a little bit of market update. When we get after that, we're going to talk about some more banking malfeasance. There's some stuff that Wells Fargo and BofA pulled recently, which is, you know, I'd like a month. I'd like 30 days where I can just go through a 30-day news cycle and not see yet another story about a bank stealing from its own depositors, stealing from its own clients. Can Mortgage Bankers Association, Bankers Association of America, you guys get together and just, for me, 30 days without a scandal? Just give me that, 30 days. I think the rest of the public would like it as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit because there's been a couple interesting scandals there. And we're going to talk about a big story that went out last week that we're heavily involved in, that we did, that the news station here, news segment of KHTS, was nice enough to put together for us. A story I was telling them about, and they're good enough to get into it. And it has made a difference. It's made a big difference. We're going to talk about that today as well. But before we get going on all of that good stuff, first I have to tell you the standard disclaimer that my name is Richard Szerman. I am not an attorney. It seems really important I state that these days. I am not an attorney. I am a realtor with 33 years experience doing foreclosure prevention and all manner of fixes with title problems and real estate problems and all sorts of things around real estate. If you got a problem, I can fix it. I've been doing that for free for people for over 30 years. I started doing this when I was 19. Those of you who do the math, you can figure out I'm 52. And it's been a long and interesting career, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'm going to keep going with it. And what we do is when people have real estate problems, if they have issues, if they have stuff that people have told them no one else can help them with, if they've been turned down by their friends, their relatives, their attorneys, realtors don't know how to deal with it, other people in the industry know how to deal with it, bring it to me. I will figure it out. I promise you I will figure it out. I'm good at solving these problems, these puzzles, and I've been doing it for a long time. So whatever your problem is, bring it in. We'll see if we can help. You can always reach me on my cell phone, 661-714-1400. So yes, so to clear up, the opinions I state are my own. They are not that of the stations or anybody else. I am not an attorney. I am a realtor with a lot of experience doing this sort of thing. So let's talk about the market, because that's always important. First thing I want to read you guys is there are some headlines, and these are just kind of the headlines at the moment for the real estate market, and they go like this. The first one, let's see, Yahoo Finance. Home prices will drop next year after falling flat in 2023. Analysts predict. That analyst is Morgan Stanley. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more later. So yeah, home prices will drop next year, according to after falling flat in 2023. Next headline, mortgage giant Fannie Mae says a recession is still coming at the end of the year. And last but not least, home sales slow, prices to fall, says Realtor.com. So here you got Morgan Stanley, Fannie Mae, and Realtor.com all telling us the prices are going to go down by the end of the year, which is something I've been telling you guys since the beginning of the year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with prices, because in our area, we are in a high price area. People want to live here. And as a result, housing prices have gone up quite a bit lately because there's been so little demand. I'm going to talk about that as well. So let me get into this Morgan Stanley article for you because it's important. So Morgan Stanley housing analysis experts expect home prices to hold steady over the year-over-year in 2023 before edging lower next year. Quote, we forecast housing prices in 2023 to finish the year flat versus 2022 before falling 2% in 2024 as affordability continues to adjust slowly back to the long-run averages and inventory begins to slow climb off the multi-decade lows. What they're saying is it's affordability. There aren't enough houses on the market because, as I talk about every week, Fannie Mae tells us it's 70%, Bankers Association tells us 62% of every mortgage in the United States right now. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. Every single mortgage in the United States right now is under 4%. 4% or under. So 7% according to Fannie Mae, and 62% according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. That's most of the houses out there. And if you have an interest rate right now at, say, 3.5 or even 4, and you were to sell that house and buy another, boy, your lifestyle, your life better really be dictating that move, because financially it's going to be rough because interest rates have gone up yet again this week. They went down a little, came back up. So now we're up above 7.5 again. So if you're going to go from a 4% interest rate or lower to a 7% interest rate, it's going to be something you kind of feel compelled in some way to do, because you're not going to do that as a matter of choice. So as a result, there's far fewer houses on the market. Anyway, back to the article. Data from Zillow revealed that the average U.S. home value was $348,853 as of July 28th, up 1.2% from the prior year. Now that's obviously nationwide, and property in other parts of the country, like property in rural Kansas, is really not going to be the same as property in Valencia. Nothing's wrong with either of those things. They're just very different. You know, aardvark's an aardvark, and a dog dog is a dog. They're both mammals, but they're different things. Anyway, that's still good news for buyers who have been pressured by the affordability due to inflated property prices and rising mortgage rates. After increasing 45% from the start of 2020 to the peak of 2022, housing prices have since dropped 5%. Exactly what I've been telling you guys. Housing activity has bottomed, but housing activity has bottomed, but tightening lending standards and a persistent gap between new and outstanding mortgage rates are likely to prevent meaningful increases in this year, wrote the firm's housing research team. Many homeowners are locked into their current properties because they have mortgage rates that are well below the prevailing rate and are so reluctant to sell. That's made it harder for buyers to find previously owned homes, pushing resales to tumble 18% compared with, that's the number, the total number of volume, 18% compared with the June last year. That's not prices, that's the number, the volume. It's two very different things. Prices of properties versus the volume sold are very different things. They obviously inform each other, but they are different numbers. Newly built homes market has come back to life, propped up by buyers discouraged by the resale market. While new home sales fell 2.5% to a seasonally adjusted rate of 697,000 units in June from the revised May rate of 715,000, according to the Census Bureau, the sales pace was still 23.8% above the year-ago level. And that's the good news in this is new houses. New houses, they cannot build them quickly enough, and I mean that literally. They cannot get supplies and they cannot get contractors to most of the sites and most of the builders I talk to get them built quickly enough. They know they've got a market for it now, and they're all trying to get to it as quickly as they can because the resale market is so restricted. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. We get into the specific numbers for Santa Clarita. It is so restricted that they're trying to bring new houses to market as quick as they can. So anyway, total housing inventory at the end of June totaled 1.08 million units, according to NAR, the National Association of Realtors, which equates to a 3.1 month supply. Just so you guys know, it really should be about an 8 to 9 month supply to have any kind of normalcy. A year is what they would tell you is really best, but yeah, at least 6 to 9 months for sure. But 3.1 month supply in the current sales pace. An industry rule of thumb is that we need a 6 to 9 month supply. The lack of supply has convinced home builders to churn out more homes. Morgan Stanley team expects single-family unit housing starts to end 2023 down 12% versus 2022 because we weren't ready for this, an improvement of over 29% of the decline so far to date. It's just, affordability is the word. Affordability. And with the interest rate as high as it is, and with mortgages now as high as they are, a lot of people are in golden handcuffs. They don't want to sell to buy something else. For buyers, it's hard out there because if you were a buyer 2 years ago, your mortgage payment would have been 40, 50% lower, 60% lower than it is now because you got an interest rate around 3.5, maybe something like that, where now you're looking at 7.5. So it is brutal out there. It is absolutely brutal. And for realtors, and this is the toughest numbers to digest right now, is that with realtors, we're looking at, and these are the numbers that come from the Southland Regional Association of Realtors directly out of the MLS. I'm going to give you the stats for both Santa Clarita and for the San Fernando Valley. And oh boy, are they just brutal. So the median sales price in the Santa Clarita Valley held steady this month at $800,000, no change year over year from last year, no change month over month from last month either. So we're seeing our median sales prices remained at $800,000. The median sales price for single family homes is up 3%, $875, and in condos is up 1% to $560. Now those numbers are a little bit misleading right now because there's so little inventory on the market in the Santa Clarita Valley because we're really functioning about a third of what we should have out there or less. So when one house sells, it has a much larger impact on the overall numbers than it would if it was, one house versus this time last year when it would have had to be 10 houses to have the same effect, or 8 houses to have the same effect. So keep in mind, it could just be one very expensive house or one very cheap house that kind of skews these overall numbers. That's why this next set of numbers is so important. There were 287 new listings in the Santa Clarita Valley in the month of July. That's it, 287. Condos, townhomes, all of the above, etc., ranches, condos, 287 of them in the entire Santa Clarita Valley. That represents a 33% drop from this time last year. It's a third of the market, folks. The only slight improvement is it was a 41% drop last month. So last month, our total volume of new listings fell 41% year over year, compared to last year. This month, it's only down 33%. So at least it's starting to get a little better. But whether that's just a 1 month anomaly, whether that's because kids are going back to school or getting prepared to go back to school, time will tell. As far as active listings that are already on the market, there are only 349 of those in July, and that's a 53% drop year over year. As far as active listings, those are properties that were on the market in July that were available for sale of all types. 53% fewer. In June, it was 54% fewer. So at least we're starting to head in the right direction again, but it's only a point. And I think that is the single most telling number. There just aren't enough properties on the market, and that's what's creating the price appreciation that we're experiencing, and that's what's making it so darn hard to afford a house, coupled with higher interest rates. So Affordability is the buzzword. And as far as pending sales, another big number, there were only 153. That is anemic for us. That should be much, much higher. 153 pending sales. Those are houses that went into escrow in July of 2023 in the Santa Clarita Valley. That represents a 42% drop year over year. Wow. So there are 33% fewer listings coming to market. There are 53% fewer listings on the market, and there are 42% fewer sales going into escrow. As all that wasn't bad enough, there are only 199 closed sales in the entire valley. 199, that's it. That is a 30% drop year over year from last year. Should be closer to 300. Got 199. The total sales volume, which is the number that we realtors and people who run real estate companies look at, was only $1.2 billion so far this year. So our total sales volume year to date is $1.2 billion in the Santa Clarita Valley. That represents a drop of 33% year over year, which again, last month it was 34, so at least it's starting to ease a little, but 1 percentage point doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. And when it comes to supply, we talked about that in the previous article. Santa Clarita, our supply is anemic. Right now we have 1.8 months worth of supply, which is that 350 houses. It should be closer to about 3 to 6 months. 8 months would be even better. But yeah, that's up from 1.2 months in June. So at least it's starting to improve a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So maybe the market's starting to thaw. Maybe some of the stuff's coming back to market. Maybe we're going to see some more houses. I don't know. And to contrast those to the San Fernando Valley, a much larger area, obviously, but still very important as it's the next valley over and it impacts our prices as we impact theirs. The average sales price, median sales price in the San Fernando Valley is $925,000, up 5% year over year. The median single-family home sales price is $1,030,000, up 7% year over year. It was down 9% last month, so that's kind of balancing out. The condo sales, same story. $610,000 is the average condo in the San Fernando Valley versus $560,000 here. Just as the average house in the San Fernando Valley is $1,030,000 as opposed to $875,000 here. And that number for condos there is up 1% year over year as it was last month. There were 979 new listings in the San Fernando Valley. That's down 32% year over year. There were 1,447 active listings, down 40% year over year. So think about that number. The 40% for the San Fernando Valley, 53% for us. That's a 53% nosedive in the amount of available properties on the market for us, and a 40% nosedive for the the San Fernando Valley as far as properties available for them. And same story with pending sales. They're down 36%. There were 471 of them. We are down 42% at 153. And again, that big number, 612 closed sales, which is a 20% drop year over year in the San Fernando Valley, whereas in the Santa Clarita Valley, we're seeing a 31% drop. These are not great numbers. And year-to-date, total sales dollar value for the San Fernando Valley, $5.25 billion, down 32% year-over-year, contrasted with us at $1.2 billion at 33% drop year-over-year. These are not encouraging numbers. I don't know what the Fed is doing. I'm not sure what they're thinking. I'm very, very worried about what they're doing. Raising the interest rate the way they have, and I won't bother with the Fed rate doesn't exactly mirror the mortgage interest rate speech again, but it does have a huge effect, and I just know they're going to raise it at least one more time before the end of the year. In order to prevent inflation, I think they're actually causing it, because what they're doing is people are actually sort of failing upward when it comes to property. They can't move their property. They're stuck in their property because of the low interest rate, because the monthly payment on another property would be so expensive, and yet their property values are still going up. So it's a very, very, very strange sort of failure mode, because the Fed keeps raising the interest rate, and at least for the high value areas like Southern California, instead of prices going down, they're having the opposite effect. They're going up because people aren't bringing more houses to market, and supply and demand is dictating that. So, oh boy, has it been kind of crazy out there. So I tell you what, let's take a break. We'll digest some of those numbers, because boy, seeing that 40% or thereabouts of the real estate market no longer exists in 2023. So if you're in escrow, title, you're a realtor, if you're involved in the market, there's 40% fewer houses being sold in our area. And that's going to be rough. That's going to be a rough year. So if you know a realtor, give them a pat on the back, tell them thank you, because it's going to be rough the rest of the year for us. It'll get better as it goes on, but wow, that's a tough number. So let's take a break. Let's hear from some of the sponsors. Pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about bad banks. We're going to talk about some of the banking malfeasance we've dealt with, and the most recent article of Gal and Cannon Country, who we saved her house. So come back and we'll talk all about it. I'm Rich, and this is the Real Estate Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. Hello, welcome back. You're listening to KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station, and you're listening to The Fix with Rich, and I'm your host, Rich Szerman, and we're talking about all things real estate and real estate problems, as we always do. And today we're talking about, as I often do, bad banks. We actually had a thing we were doing when we first started the show called the Bad Bank of the Week, which I thought was hysterical, but every week it's the same two banks. We had just suspended the bid. It ceased to be funny, because it was it's always PHH and Carrington Mortgage. They're just awful. They are just awful. And so what I want to talk about is one of those banks, PHH, a bank that's near and dear to my heart, because, oh boy, do we have stuff with them constantly. They just, I don't know, it's like, they just, in my view, they are just the worst servicer, the worst mortgage servicer in the country. They're just awful. And there's a lot of competition for that title, but boy, are they just awful. And before I get more into kind of the rest of the story, I want to tell you, because there was an article that came out last week about a client of mine named Beverly Fox. And Beverly Fox is a wonderful, wonderful lady, and she's 90 years old. She'll tell you with great pride she's about to be 91. And the story ran August 2nd of last week. And the title of the story is 90-Year-Old Grandmother at Risk of Being Kicked Out Onto the Streets Thanks to Reverse Mortgage Scam. And I want to thank Jade Abushan and Andrew Menjivar for putting together the story. Jade writing it and Andrew doing all the production on it and putting together the video. Because the story made a difference. It made a big, big difference. This is one of the nice good news stories I can bring you. PHH was the bank servicing, still is the bank servicing Beverly's reverse mortgage. And in my point of view, they did some things wrong. And we can prove some of the things they did wrong. And as a result of their malfeasance, that put her into foreclosure, and they were going to foreclose on a 90-year-old woman and throw her out into the street in a house that has equity, and she's got a reverse mortgage. You're not supposed to be able to throw somebody out of a reverse mortgage, but there are loopholes. I would call them that in a reverse mortgage. People who sell reverse mortgages would just call them reverse mortgages. They wouldn't call them loopholes. It's a problem. They decided she wasn't alive, she wasn't living in the house, and they set her house up for foreclosure. And it's just awful. If you want the whole story, certainly you can go back and read it. You can go back and see the video. It's quite good. I'm sure you can find it on KHTS's website, or you can go to YouTube and find it as well. I think you can find it under my name, which is Sherman with a Z, as Zerman. It's a strange way to spell Sherman. There's a Z instead of it, in it instead of an H. They tell me it's Russian ancestry, Polish ancestry, but I think it's for no reason whatsoever. We just like being weird. But I can't tell telemarketers because I can't pronounce my last name. They always say Zerman or Zizerman or something, which is fine, but it's pronounced Sherman. Anyway, but you can go back and read the story. But the most important thing I want to talk about is the bank and kind of the reaction to that story, because it's one of the things that was going on about last week. People who get online and feel the need in the dark of the night, sitting in front of a keyboard, just spending 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour of their time ranting about something that they are not helping with, and that really doesn't involve them, but boy, they're sure they got an opinion. And that's fine. The public square is the public square. That's fine. But my goodness, if you're going to do that, at least have the courage of your convictions. At least do that. I mean, I've been accused of many things over the years. I've been said I'm pig-headed, which is true. I've been said I'm arrogant, which I'll cop to. I've even been told I was wrong, which happens on occasion. And I'll cop to all those things. But I do not lack the courage of my convictions. When I say something, I stand behind it. And I find that is not true online. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. First, let's talk about our good friends at PHH Mortgage, the servicer of Beverly's loan. Because one of the people who responded online had a vigorous defense of the reverse mortgage industry. And I think before we get into that, I want you guys to know who it is that is servicing this mortgage. I want you guys to know the characters that are involved in this little story, this little drama, as to who they are. So PHH Mortgage and its parent company is called Ocwen. Ocwen is the largest single non-bank originators of mortgages servicer of mortgages in the country. Ocwen bought PHH on October 4th, 2018 for approximately $360 million. As of 2018, the combined company consisting of Ocwen and PHH serviced over $296 billion, that's with a B, $296 billion in consumer mortgage loans, making Ocwen the largest non-bank mortgage servicer in the country. As of 2021, Ocwen and PHH combined boasted over 1 million customers. In 2022, PHH reported revenue of $831.9 million. $831.9 million in revenue. In 2022, Ocwen reported a 30% reduction in servicing costs. Wait a minute. How did you reduce your servicing costs in 2022? I think it's because you cut services. I think they reduced their servicing costs because they have less people working to service their clientele. I guess you'd have to ask PHH or Ocwen about that, but they seem real proud of that. Let's take a look at their history. In March 2014, the CFPB and all 50 states brought a lawsuit against Ocwen, accusing it of misconduct, including charging unfair fees. Remember I said that because you're going to hear this over and over again. Charging unfair fees and effectively pushing people into foreclosure. Without admitting wrongdoing, because why would they? Ocwen agrees to pay $2 billion in mortgage relief, plus another $125 million in relief to consumers. Because, most people who shell out $2 billion, they're not admitting wrongdoing. That was in 2014. February 2017, both Ocwen and PHH Services received cease and desist orders prohibiting the acquisition of new mortgage servicing rights and the origination of mortgage loans by subsidiary Ocwen Loan Servicing until the company was, quote, able to prove it can appropriately manage its customers' mortgage escrow accounts, end quote. So far in 2014, they had to pay $2 billion and another $125 million because of misconduct and charging unfair fees. And then in 2017, they were literally shut down because their processes were so bad. But that was years ago. Let's see if it got better. In April of 2017, clearly a banner year for both companies, the CFPB took legal action against Ocwen, accusing the company of inaccurate record keeping and overcharging that led to foreclosures. That's after they were basically shut down. That's after they were told they couldn't originate any mortgages. Then the CFPB found out that the record keeping was poor and it was leading to foreclosures. In other words, they weren't doing their job. August of 2017, $74 million to settle bad loan allegations. PHH violated the False Claims Act by knowingly originating and underwriting mortgage loans issued by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Federal Housing Administration, guaranteed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, and purchased by the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, and the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac. In other words, they were defrauding FHA and VA. So when you hear a reverse mortgage is federally backed and it's not a problem because they're FHA insured and all that good stuff, yeah, keep in mind this is a company that defrauded at least once before, along with the VA and HUD, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That's who PHH and Ocwen are. In February of 2021, a coalition, we're up to 2021 now, in February of 2021, a coalition of 33 state attorneys general filed motion against PHH Mortgage and its predecessor, Ocwen Loan Servicing, for allegedly charging unlawful servicing fees to nearly 1 million borrowers. Unlawfully charging service fees to 1 million borrowers. The coalition alleged that the charges by PHH are illegal and improper because the authorization of those fees cannot be found in the mortgage contracts. PHH is violating the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, leading the CFPB to conclude that PHH is essentially a debt collector. Again, they defrauded their own clientele. We're not done yet. July of 2021, a mortgage holder with a defaulted home loan settled a potential class action lawsuit with PHH Mortgage Corp. after he alleged the company inflated property inspection fees. Kirk Culver is the fellow's name, sued the company in 2020 and said it proposed a class action lawsuit that PHH improperly charged him markups on its cost for third-party property inspections and defaulted loans. He sued them because they charged him unwarranted fees for inspections on supposedly defaulted loans. According to his claim, PHH contracted with third-party vendors that used a computerized system to generate property inspections every 20 to 30 days. With each inspection, PHH added between $15 to $19.50 to Culver's mortgage. However, the actual cost of these inspections was much less than what was charged, the class action lawsuit said. Now, PHH settled that lawsuit, so I think we can take it that, yeah. Not done yet. September of 2021. Homeowners who filed a class action lawsuit against PHH over pay-to-pay fees, which means pay by phone, have agreed to settle the case for $12.6 million. Central to the case was PHH Mortgage practice of charging what it referred to as processing fees. There it is again. Processing fees ranging from $7.50 to $17.50 each. The plaintiff said those charges violated the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and were in breach of their mortgage contracts. The proposed settlement sets up eligible class members to get refunds of 18 to 28% of the illegitimate fees they paid PHH Mortgage. So let that sink in for a second. PHH settles a case for $12.6 billion, and that $12.6 million only means 18 to 28% of the illegitimate fees they charged. So that means they're profiting by the over 70% that they charged. That's crazy. But okay, I guess it's fun to steal from people. It's great. It's profitable to steal from people if you only have to pay back, roughly 30% or 28% or 18%. One more, not done yet. April of 2022. This is just last year. A federal appeals court said that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau may pursue its claims accusing Ocwen Financial Corp. of mortgage servicing misconduct. The suit alleges that Ocwen violated federal mortgage servicing law by charging customers for broker price opinions and hybrid valuations which contained undisclosed markups that were either prohibited by the loan documents or by state law. That is who PHH is. That is who Ocwen is. They are constantly being fined. They are constantly being admonished. They are constantly settling lawsuits over charges that should not exist. Over, excuse me for saying so, over ripping off their own clients. And that's what they were doing in this case. In the case of Beverly Fox, they were stealing from her. I have said many times, I'm going to keep saying it until they stop doing it, PHH, as a business practice, has no issues whatsoever stealing from little old ladies and then torturing them by threatening them with foreclosure. Because that is what happened in this case, and we'll see it in other cases, and I've seen it before. This is their business model. Now, to be clear, that does not apply to all reverse mortgages. That applies to PHH. There's another company who's equally bad called Carrington. We'll save them for later. But that's PHH. That is who PHH is. And that's not my opinion on the subject. Those are just the various lawsuits and settlements that are public that they've dealt with and Ocwen has dealt with in the last several years. This is who they are. A company so bad, the federal government said you are not allowed to do any more mortgage business until you clean up your act. And then 2 months later, they got caught doing something again. That is who they are. So this is who some of the online comments, one in particular, has decided is worth defending. Now, I'm going to do him a favor, and I'm not going to use his full name, although he did put it on his comment, and I appreciate that. At least it showed some courage to put his full name on there. We're just going to call him Dennis. You can look up the site, you can look at the story, and you can look at the comments online if you really want. If you're really that curious, you can reach it at KHTS or hometownstation.com. Anyway, Dennis felt the need to write the following. Now, before I go on, before I tell you this, I want to let you know, he put his phone number in here, and he said if he wanted me to call him, I could. I think it was kind of a way to get his phone number out in the story and kind of inject himself into it, maybe as a way to gin up business, I guess, I don't know. And I did call him. And we had a conversation, and considering you'll hear what I'll read what he wrote. He's defending a bank's position, and this is the bank I just told you about, in the story that you can see online, and I've been telling you guys about. So I don't think you can defend the indefensible. So he and I have very different points of view. And at first I said, this is early this week, I said, your point of view is very interesting. I'd consider putting you on the show. And he said, I'd love to do that. I'd like to do that. I'd consider doing that. And I said, okay, I'll let you know. And I gave it some thought, and I talked to the powers that be around here. We kicked it around a little bit. And then I called him up yesterday, and I said, hey, Dennis, if you want to come on the show, I will give you the platform. You can come on. You can say whatever you want. And he said no. He declined the invitation because he doesn't want to get into a gunfight with me, and he does not want to discuss Beverly Fox's home. So he doesn't want to, that just tells me he lacks the courage of his convictions, which is unfortunate. So let me read you what he wrote, and you guys can come to your own conclusion. This is August 2nd at 6:29 p.m. The characterization of the reverse mortgage industry is so flawed that I don't know where to start. There is always a hardship case that one can point to in order to paint a situation as being the fault of the big bad bank. Let me just digest that for a second. The foreclosure rates on reverse mortgages in the United States run 10 to 12%. That means 10 to 12% of every single reverse mortgage that is taken out in this country at some point goes into default, goes into foreclosure. Now, I don't think most of them get foreclosed on, but they do go into foreclosure. It happens regularly. And that is the scam that Beverly Fox got caught up in. It happens regularly. Now, just to compare and contrast with a standard mortgage or a regular mortgage, those numbers never get above 3%. They usually hover around 1.2 to 2.5%. So you're talking about a loan product with a foreclosure rate, with a deficiency rate between 10 and 12% versus an industry standard of roughly let's say 2 to 3%. So it's triple, more than triple. So when he says that the entire industry, my painting the industry that way is flawed, I don't think so. He goes on, I'm intimately familiar with reverse mortgage lending and servicing practices. I'm also an expert regarding the terms and conditions under which these loans are originated. Okay. Every reverse mortgage borrower must undergo counseling from a third party not related to the lender before they can get a reverse mortgage. The counseling verifies the borrower understands the terms of the loan, including the requirements to annually verify occupancy. One of the big reasons that people get put into foreclosure erroneously, in my view, is because the bank demands that they verify occupancy. Now, the way the law is written, it just says you have to occupy it. The bank's demand that you prove occupancy is a different issue, and hopefully that'll be litigated at some point. And I can prove that they did not do that in this case because I have copies of the reports that they filed with their various asset managers and things like that demonstrate clearly in pictures that they never got into the house. Remember I said that. No representative from PHH ever got into the complex, let alone to the house, because it's a gated area in Friendly Valley, and there's a guard gate. They never got past the gate. But yet, they did an in-person visit. I don't know how you get those two things together. We'll talk about that a little bit. But anyway, so when they say that every reverse mortgage borrower must undergo counseling from a third party, that is a HUD counseling session which lasts a half an hour to 45 minutes. And basically what he's saying is you spend 30 to 45 minutes with a government employee and suddenly you'll understand reverse mortgages. It's ridiculous. I'm glad there's some counseling that's required, but that's ridiculous. The standard is not being met. The service must send an additional annual occupancy letter within 60 days of the first goes unanswered, if the first goes unanswered. In addition, they will contact her directly via phone, which they didn't do, and almost every lender requires an alternate contact in case the borrower cannot be reached. Well, I don't know if they have an alternate contact, but they didn't use it. I know when I call Beverly, she calls me back. Called her this morning. I know when I send Beverly a letter, she responds. When I send her information, she responds. Let me get a little farther with this and I'll explain. Whenever a loan is transferred to a different servicer, a written notice is sent to the borrower. That's not true. The law says they're supposed to, but it doesn't happen. This is not unique to reverse mortgages. Most conventional or forward mortgages follow I guess because he does reverse mortgages, he refers to them as forward mortgages. Forward mortgages follows the same required notification process. I would venture most borrowers, reverse or forward, cannot name their current servicer. I guarantee you, everyone within the sound of my voice who has a mortgage knows darn well who they're paying their mortgage payments to. They know who their servicer is because that's who they have to send money to every single month so their house doesn't go to foreclosure. So saying something that I would venture most borrowers, reverse or forward, cannot name their current servicer is nonsense. It's nonsense. I have 5 or 6 different mortgages. I know who all the servicers are. It's not because I'm in the business. It's because I have to pay every month. Nonsense. Also, this just plain bull about every time it transfers, they're supposed to say, yes, they're supposed to send a notice. They absolutely are supposed to, but they don't. Now, the reason I know that they don't is because there is a flaw in the law, and I've talked about this before. There's a massive flaw when it comes to these sorts of notices. Now, this is a notice that could cost you your house. There is no requirement that notice be constructive, which is a legal way of saying they don't have to prove they sent it. Now, luckily for NODs and NOSs, notices of default, notices of sale, they do have to send it, and that's why Beverly responded when she got one. But as far as the transfer, clients almost never have those transfers between Bank A to Bank B, Bank C to Bank C, the transfers, the ownership of the loan, because they don't send them. And I can't prove she didn't get it, just like they can't prove they actually sent it, because there's no requirement. That needs to change. Notice should be constructive. If the bank is sending out a notice for something that is this important, they darn sure can send it certified mail. He goes on. No lender wants in big capital letters to make sure we didn't miss it, no lender wants to foreclose on a borrower. That's factually untrue. There are lenders out there who make all kinds of money foreclosing on borrowers. It's their business model. My gosh, to say that is just ridiculous. And they certainly don't want to take her home from her. That I couldn't speak to. With the reforms implemented by HUD and FHA in recent years, the situation is rare. No, it isn't. The amount of foreclosures in the reverse mortgage industry are 10 to 12%. So no, it is not rare. However, the lender servicer is just as obligated as the borrower to follow the terms of the loan. Yeah, but the difference is they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation and Beverly Fox is a 90-year-old woman living alone in Canaan country. I don't think they're on an equal footing. This includes pursuing a foreclosure if the terms are not met and the default occurs. To do otherwise would risk them being able to recover any relief from the FHA insurance fund that covers these loans. Again, a company that was caught several years ago defrauding, among others, FHA. But we should be concerned with their ability to collect on their insurance for a loan like this. Unbelievable. Just defending the indefensible. With regard to the tax issue, virtually all home loans require you to pay property taxes on time and keep your home insured against loss. It's true. Not doing so technically is a default. Also true. But again, most servicers will pay these property charges on behalf of the borrower to avoid tax lien or complicated loss from uninsured property rather than immediately initiate a foreclosure proceeding. Okay, not true. They will pay the taxes for sure because they're protecting their own investment. Because if a property goes to tax sale, the first gets wiped out. It's one of the few things that can wipe out a first lien. So they're going to pay that also to keep the charges. The charges for not paying your property taxes are crazy. And the penalties are nuts. So they pay them for that. But then they pass those fees. Not only pay out of the goodness of their heart for the borrower, they pass those fees on to the borrower and they charge their own fees on top of it. So yeah, it's a profit center for them. And then he goes on to say I can give him a call, which I did. So I responded. I won't bother reading you my response. I can figure out what it is, I suppose. You can read it if you like. So, but he went on. He comes back again later. In my response to him, I said, I would guess you're a mortgage lender, because nowhere in there does he says he is. In his first response. In his second response, I'm a mortgage lender for 18 years here in Santa Clarita, and I do specialize in reverse mortgages. Imagine my surprise. The boilerplate defense you reference is based on the actual terms and conditions written into the reverse mortgage loan contract and based on the governing guidelines issued by HUD. Accurate. I do not deny that Mrs. Fox is in an untenable situation. Well, I'm sure she's thrilled to hear that. Thank you for your acceptance of her difficult situation, Dennis. But what I do have issue with is your assertion, that's my assertion, PHH failed to comply with the guidelines set out by HUD when servicing her reverse mortgage. How the heck would you know? You're a guy who knows something about reverse mortgages who saw an article online. How would you have any idea whether they kept up with their requirements under HUD with this loan? How would you know? You don't have the file, but you felt necessary to comment on it. Okay, that's fine. You don't believe that. That's good. Mrs. Fox had ample opportunity to communicate with PHH, including but not limited to the following. When her mortgage transferred to Champion, wasn't told. She received a transfer letter. This is required by every lender. She could have called them then. Yes, she could have if she knew what was going on. According to your video, she received an annual occupancy certificate, but chose to ignore it. No, we think she did. She thinks she got a letter from them, and we think it was that. We don't know, because she only barely remembers getting something from PHH, so no. PHH is required to send a follow-up letter in the next 60 days. Well, they may be required, but didn't happen. There is no response. PHH will attempt to contact Mrs. Fox directly. Again, no, they did not. PHH will issue a notice informing her the loan is due and payable due in default terms. At this point, she is still not in foreclosure. Well, while I appreciate that, there was a sale date set for her house on May 16th. So, yeah, she was in foreclosure. Yes, there was a sale date scheduled. Now, you could have looked that up in the public record, or you could have asked me, but you felt the need to comment on a case you had nothing to do with and are totally ignorant of the facts behind. But you seem to know, Dennis. Okay, go ahead. In response, PHH will begin foreclosure proceedings. Notice sent to the borrower before PHH begins a foreclosure proceeding. They must get approval from HUD, which is a rubber stamp. The official position of HUD is servicers are to avoid foreclosure unless it is absolutely unavoidable. Well, they're doing a bang-up job because 10 to 12% of these things go to foreclosure. So kudos to HUD for preventing foreclosures with this market share. Who are you kidding? The numbers are what the numbers are. If no response, a sale date will be set and scheduled. Again, blaming the borrower as if a 90-year-old woman wanted her house to go to foreclosure. She's got equity in it. She's supposed to be getting money out of the house. Nonsense. Your assertions are nothing more than that without these things that they did not happen. Well, I can prove several of these things did not happen because several of their inspectors and their inspections come with pictures, and they don't have any pictures of the property. There is one appraiser who got in to take a picture of the outside of the property, which clearly shows the property is occupied because you can see houseplants and knickknacks all over her front porch. So we know the property is occupied. Nobody knocked on the door, though. And every other inspector they sent took a picture of the guard gate and left. It says right in their report, did you get to the house? No. Did you complete an exterior inspection? No. Still charge Beverly for it, though. Beverly's being charged over $5,000 in erroneous fees because of inspections and things of that nature. It is complete and utter nonsense. So with all due respect to Dennis, who I would love to have had him come on the air, and we can talk about these things in more detail, and my invitation stands. Dennis, anytime you want to come on the air to talk about these things, we can certainly do that. But understand, you are defending what is, in my opinion, indefensible, and I will call you out on it. You're also talking about a case that you have no knowledge of, but you seem to know what's going on because you're an expert in the reverse mortgage industry. That's your call, I guess. I tell you what, let's go to break. Let's hear some more of our advertisers. Then I will tell you what PHH's official response was to this entire mess and why they canceled the foreclosure and kind of where we're at with it now, which is mostly good news, not for PHH, but for us. So let's hear from some more advertisers. We'll come back. We'll talk all about that. I'm Rich Szerman, your host of The Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. Hello, welcome back. You've reached the Real Estate Fix with Rich. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. I mispronounced my own name. It's that kind of day. Rich Szerman on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. Now, we've been talking about the story of Beverly Fox and her reverse mortgage in Canyon Country and how poor a lender PHH is and how poorly they've behaved, them and their parent company, Ocwen. And the response we got online, but boy, was there a lot of response. And we got a fellow whose last name I'm not going to put out there. His first name is Dennis. I'll use that. If you want the rest of the information, you can go. He posted his own name and phone number online on the story. You can go to KHTS. You can go to yourhometownstation.com and you can read the story under the heading of 90-year-old woman, 90-year-old grandmother at risk of being kicked out onto streets thanks to reverse mortgage scam. And it posted August 2nd. I would encourage you guys to do that. We've got a little under 10,000 views so far and getting a lot of response to it. But I was just reading his comments, the two times he chose to comment, and I responded to his comments, of course, online. You can see those as well. But more importantly, I wanted you guys to hear PHH's comments. And before I move on, I did want to say about Dennis, the one redeeming quality I find in his behavior here, although I disagree with everything he said, pretty much. Although those are the rules for reverse mortgages. I don't quibble with the rules. I'm just saying they weren't followed by PHH. And again, my problem is not with reverse mortgages on a whole, although I think there are opportunities for malfeasance in there that shouldn't be there. I think they need to be better regulated. That's not my issue. My issue is bank PHH behaves badly. And they behave badly with standard mortgages as well. But the one thing I respect about Dennis is he put his name on his comments. He at least showed some conviction by doing that. Most people online don't do that. They just prattle on at length and don't actually, take responsibility for the comments. And he's probably regretting that he did that about now. But I wish he would have come on the show because I would have liked to have heard his point of view. I really would have liked it if you guys could have heard what we talked about on the phone. But maybe one day he will. But in the meantime, I take issue with what he said, and he's not here to defend it, so we'll just move past. We'll just stick with what he said. Now, I do want to let you know what PHH said. This was their response to this little mess. I'm not going to read you the whole thing because there's not a lot here, but according to PHH, a property inspection fee, because we've been yelling at them about unnecessary fees and bad behavior. According to them, property inspection fees, a property inspection fee is necessary and is performed on a default mortgage account to verify whether the property is occupied. Remember that, to verify whether the property is occupied and to ensure against vandalism. Due to the default status of the account, the inspections were performed and corresponding fees were assessed to the account. Same stuff they've gotten busted for recently for doing with other accounts. So property inspection fee, and remember, it's to verify whether the property is occupied. Now, there is a company that they hire called Guardian Asset Management. They have gone out to the house, not once, not twice, but 3 times. In fact, I can give you the dates. They went out, July 6, 2022, September 9, 2022, February 6, 2023, and March 6, 2023. So they've been out to the house 4 separate times. And yet, they've never been to the house. They've never tried to get past the guard gate at Friendly Valley. They literally get to the guard gate, see it's a guard gate, and turn around. Now, I'm sure they would say, they take a picture of the guard gates, that way they can get paid. Now, I'm sure that they would say there's some guideline that says they don't have to go through guard gates or something like that. But the reality is, if you go to the guard gate at Friendly Valley and you tell them you're a realtor and you're here for Real Estate Matter and give them the address, they'll let you in. It's not a problem. But apparently they couldn't get it done. Property preservation, this is again from PHH, property preservation keeps property maintenance, security, and repair work required by HUD to ensure the property meets HUD conveyance condition standards. So it was HUD's fault, I guess. As per our review, the inspections were ordered and completed within the allotted time frame per HUD guidelines. The mortgagee must perform vacant property inspections every 25 to 35 days after the first vacant property inspection. How the heck did you guys know that this property was vacant or not? Your inspectors never got past the guard gate. The one appraiser who got past the guard gate took a picture of the outside of the house, and it is plainly occupied. Houseplants tend to die if no one is living in the house. People don't tend to keep knickknacks on their patios if they're not living in the house. So PHH, if they looked at the darn report, they would know darn well that the house is occupied. But they didn't. They looked at the other reports where they didn't even bother to go in the house. They didn't bother to get past the guard gate. So with all due respect to the people who are commenting online, yeah, I can prove some of these things. I can't prove they didn't send her a letter because you can't prove a negative. It's a logical fallacy. And because they don't have to prove they did send it either. But I can absolutely prove, because they're so callous, they give us copies of these reports because they have to give them. They just send out the reports like nobody would look. I have a 144-page response asking for these reports because they thought no one would look. I studied every page. And what we found was, and there are pictures of all this, every one of these times they supposedly went to the house, every one of these times it was a vacant property inspection, nobody got to the house. So with all due respect to PHH, do not tell me you knocked on her front door, because you didn't. Now I can prove you were lying about that. What else can I prove you guys are lying about? You ought to be asking yourselves that question, because we're definitely coming to that. So before we end the show, I want to let you guys know this. If PHH is your mortgage lender, God help you. I would look at a refi as soon as you possibly can. And to the people at PHH, you steal from little old ladies and you torture them. And I say that, and I say it proudly, and I will say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it until either PHH changes their processes or I drop dead. Because what they're doing is wrong, and I stand in direct opposition to that. And I do not lack the courage of my convictions, as I'm sure you can tell. They give you a radio show if you make it loud enough, I think. For long enough, anyway. So, yeah, that is the magic and wonder of PHH. That is how they sent us a great letter about how they do not feel they have done anything wrong. They do not feel they have misrepresented or mistreated Beverly Fox in any way. You rolled up a bunch of fees because you thought she wasn't living there, because you thought she didn't pay her taxes and the insurance. We already proved she paid the insurance. We're in the process of proving she paid the taxes. The county assessor's office is taking a while to get us some documentation. Complete and utter nonsense. So what you do is you create a situation, you say she doesn't live there when she does, you don't bother to do any follow-up, which you are supposed to, you charge her for reports that are useless and accomplish nothing, then you do two different appraisals. They charged her, two different appraisals. They charged her in April of 2023, $700 for an appraisal, and they charged her again in October of 2022 for another appraisal. And yet they don't know she lives there? No one knocked on her door? These are appraisals that they are charging her for. She is paying for these things so that she can be thrown out of her own house. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. If you have a problem, please give me a call. I can help you with this stuff. Before I have an aneurysm yelling about Beverly Fox, please give me a call. We fix these things all the time. And the best thing here is because of this story and because of our work, Beverly is no longer in foreclosure. Beverly's house is out of foreclosure. We're going to get the rest of this fixed. You can call me anytime. My name is Rich Szerman. You can reach me at 661-714-1400. That number again, 661-714-1400. That is my personal cell phone number. You can call me at that 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I will be happy to answer if I don't send me a text. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good week. Be good humans. If there's anything I can help you with, give me a call. Thank you guys. Bye.